remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Good morning and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley, and with me today as my co-host is Bianca Chatfield, who I adore, B.
Oh, I adore you too. Look at you looking so bright and colourful.
It's nice to be in the same space. Remember how back in the day, which was really only a month ago maybe, we were joining each other remotely, and it was so strange.
Oh, it was odd, wasn't it? But anyway, it's so great to be here. It's great that the weather is warm again. Doesn't it just bring a smile to your face when the sunshine is out?
It really does. In Melbourne, we just yearn for that sunshine, and then about 2 days into a 30-degree heat wave, we start whinging about it again, don't we?
What do? Do you go down to the bay? How do you cool down on these hot days?
I stay out of the sun, but look at it a lot.
Okay, just admire
what about
it.
you with your pregnant belly? Oh my God, you're going to go through a summer with a big old belly. It's no fun.
Well, lucky I just take my paddleboard out. That's my little escape at the moment. Whether I will be able to do that in a few more weeks, I don't know, but I'm going to try my hardest.
What you do is you just sort of just sit in the shallows like a...
Just wade.
Yeah, just that's all you do. It's delightful. Hey, we've got an awesome show for you today. I'm really excited about all three of our guests. Comedian and whiz with a glue gun, Kel Wilson, is returning to help us get through Christmas. I'm hoping she's got some Christmas ideas that don't involve crafting, because I'm not handy.
Me neither. Not in that kind of way. I'm handy, like more like renovating, but not
excuse me. I mean, you've got like Bunnings just completely on speed dial, so you are pretty handy. I know that. Also today, we're going to be learning how to build inclusive cultures with thought leader and entrepreneur Winitha Bonney, who is one of my new favourite people that I've met this year. And we're going to explore matrescence. This is a term that maybe you haven't heard before. Certainly I only heard it this year. Matrescence is the transformation of a woman as she goes through motherhood. I love it. I love it as a term. We're going to be learning that from women's wellbeing expert Elise Clement, and that's all happening after this. Broad Radio is proudly supported by Chemist Warehouse. Chemist Warehouse, great savings every day. So, of course, it would be awesome if you would like to share your comments and thoughts as you're watching live today. If you can't watch live, you can always catch up on all of our episodes with Broad Radio on the go, wherever you get your podcast. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the show, we have to announce that our crowdfunding campaign closed on Saturday evening with much fanfare. Was it, Ro? I don't know. We were doing a Facebook Live that didn't work because I didn't know how to connect people. So in the end, we had to go over to Instagram. We did an Insta Live and we were talking, and in the middle of the conversation, it just ended. Just kind of petered out.
It was like, okay, you're done now.
That's right.
Still absolutely lovely though.
It was lovely. We shared a champagne and we had a few people joining us. It was super exciting, and we raised $57,700.
Well done to you all and the team behind it, but everyone also who contributed. That's just a huge effort, isn't it? Just the start.
Oh my
You're
God.
telling me.
That's it. You people go, oh wow, what a celebration. I'm like, yes, now it's only the beginning. Thanks to Deborah Conway for inspiring me every time. Because now we build the app, which is a big thing, and it's going to be a 6-month process at least, I'd say. But it's just super exciting to be on that journey, as they say.
Oh, and I know you love your technology, so how do you go with the whole app development side of things?
I'm not doing it.
Oh, come on.
I'm paying people who are... Why would people give me money to make an app? I need to give the money to the experts. So no, that's not me, all right? But it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to bring it to you. Before we get to our first guest, Kel Wilson, I do want to just bring up a story that I saw in the news, which firstly, people might think I'm obsessed with you and your pregnancy, right, Bianca? Because it's literally all I talk about. The thing is, I'm old, right? I turn 50 next year. Yeah. So I don't have anyone in my inner circle actually having babies anymore. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you.
It's just so topical, isn't it now? We might as well talk about it more and more.
Oh, so many people having babies. It's amazing. So I saw this story in the news that I had to bring up with you. It's about New Zealand MP Julie Ann Genter, or maybe it's Genter. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, who cycled to hospital while in labour. And here's her arriving at the hospital. She's just had a contraction there, right? Look at her bike. It's all rigged up, hilarious. And then this is her actually riding to hospital. So obviously her partner's on a bike next to her, has taken a photo. And she's arrived at 2 a.m. and she gave birth only like 10 minutes later. Amazing.
It's unbelievable. Now, I mean, I've never been in labour. I'm thinking about it a lot, what it's going to be all about. But is this the thing you should be doing? Should I be trying to ride to the hospital?
Well, I remember that they like you moving around when you're in labour. Like,
Okay.
have you done classes yet?
No, not really.
No, okay.
No.
So they do sort of talk about maybe keeping walking around the birthing suite or something. I don't know. But I can't ride a bike safely.
No, I wouldn't enjoy riding a bike like at the best of times, let alone when you're in labour. And apparently, I know she was induced for her first birth as well, but she rode to the hospital for her first birth as well. Keen cyclist, I'm going to say. She's got all the gear.
I know. Look at her bike. She's got a thing on the front that's basically the baby carrier. Like, I guess they're going to ride home with the baby in the front there. But this is the thing, B. I don't know, but every woman, surely, when they're pregnant, certainly I did, you just, as you get closer to your due date, all you can think about is, what if I go into labour at Coles?
Yes.
What if I go into labour, like, you know, when I'm at Chaston doing Christmas shopping?
Or I think, what happens if my waters break on this brand new rug I've just bought? Like that, that's the stuff that I've been thinking as well. Going, does it just happen like that? Will I not have any understanding of when it's about to happen?
I can't tell you because I was induced, so I didn't have that experience myself. But I have a friend who was in a cafe, right?
Yeah.
And she was with her husband in the cafe, and she's just gone, "Oh, I think I just wet myself." And he's gone, "No, Em, I think you're in labour." And she's gone, "No, this isn't it, is it?" And she had to just sort of waddle out of there. I've gone, "What did you do?" She's like, "Well, I didn't even tell them. I felt bad."
Like see us. You can clean up my bodily fluids.
Oh my God.
It's just so ridiculous. But, you know, I'm one of those people that I just want to know everyone's birth stories. I'm obsessed by it at the moment. I listen to podcasts about birth stories. Every friend of mine, as soon as they've gone through the labour and, you know, we go to meet the baby, I'm like, tell me all about it. Like, I want to know all the details.
No, you're not hooked up, right? That is the worst thing to ask people.
But I'm a trained biology teacher, so it's the science behind it all and the body and the hormones. I'm fascinated by it. But because I've never had to go through it myself, I'm quite happy to hear about other people. Now I'm going to be going, oh, no.
I feel bad. I don't like to tell women who haven't given birth yet what it's like.
Really?
Which then makes me think I'm contributing to the lies. I'm contributing to the fact that women aren't actually given all the information they need. But I don't want to freak them out because it's literally the worst day of your life.
Well, there's no going back from this moment. I might as well know it all now.
I mean, it's the greatest day. If my daughter is watching, I love you very much. It was the greatest gift ever, but the worst day of my life. Anyway, we won't go into it. Let's get to our first guest. She's an absolute delight. She's returning to the show. We love her because she's super funny comedian, Kel Wilson, but also whizz with a glue gun, and she's going to help us get through Christmas. You would know her from her amazing career as a stand-up comedian. You would have seen her on Have You Been Paying Attention and all the things. And here she is. Hi, Kel.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Bianca. Can I just add to the birth conversation just quickly?
Yes.
Two things I wanted to get to. Bianca, this is the way birth is. It's a hard day's work, and at the end of it, you win a person.
Okay, great. See, Kel's talking to me like an athlete now.
Yeah, well, it's full on, but then at the end of it, you win a person. Like there's another person in the room that wasn't in the room before. It's amazing. And the politician riding her bike to hospital while in labour, literally a push bike.
Nice.
Do you know, Kel, you were the first ever comedy show that I ever went to. Like, I didn't know much about comedy at all. And we have a mutual friend in Belinda who I went to school with. And she was like, you've got to come and see my comedian friend. And she's got a show at Melbourne Comedy Festival. And this would have been, I think, maybe nearly 15, 20 years ago. And off we went to watch your first show, or my first show. And from then on, I've been hooked from the Melbourne Comedy Festival ever since. It was just, and because then you also, I know that you love the block, and obviously being a Kiwi, you love your sport as well. So it's just so great to have you back on and talking to you again.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so lovely. And I'm thrilled for you. I always get really excited when other people get pregnant and have babies, because it's the biggest adventure. Someone calls it the longest, shortest time, and that's exactly it. Like, there'll be times when you just go, how is it still only 9 o'clock in the morning? And then all of a sudden, like me, I'm going, how is my son going to high school next year?
Yes. Oh, so your son's going to high school as well as my daughter's starting high school. Has he been trained on how to use a locker? Because I was talking about this.
I've written it down so I can ask if he knows how to. He hasn't had his orientation day yet, but oh my Lord, it's a whole other worry thing.
I know, but because I was talking about this off air before, that my daughter's starting high school, and one of the things they're really concerned about is that they have to take their actual lock home over Christmas and practice using like a combination lock. And then the same thing for my nephew. This is the thing that apparently Year 7 students, they just cannot work out how to do the locker.
It's making the lock sound really comprehensive. Like, they're also going to give them like a set of pickpocket tools. And so they've got to be able to break into the door before they get to their locker.
Exactly. Anyway, exciting times. Bianca's getting a baby for Christmas, and you're here to help us get through Christmas. Are you ready? Are you ready for Christmas yourself? Because you as a DIY crafter, I imagine you go nuts.
I have gone nuts, but this year I'm kind of weirded out. Like this year, it felt like it was March for 7 years, and now suddenly it's Christmas. Like, I don't know how we've got to this end of the year. But the good thing is I find making craft very soothing. And so now that I can do it for Christmas, I have nothing else is organised, but I'm like, oh no, I've just got to make a wreath for someone, and that's a lovely present for them. So it's really, I'm just self-soothing with my glue gun. And I haven't sort of thought about what we're going to have for dinner. Is it still November? I feel it's just November. I don't need to decide what we're having for dinner yet for Christmas Day.
No, you do not need to decide.
I'll think about it though for like 24 days. And then the day before I'll be like, oh, we should do a turkey. That won't happen. But my favourite thing to do, I love giving people things, but all my nieces and nephews just want money. Like, the kids get to a certain point where they just want money, but to satisfy my need to give them craft, I make sure that if I'm giving them money, I always give them a tiny thing as well. I found these tiny little Christmas trees at IKEA. How cute is that?
Yes.
A little bit plain though. Decorate them. Just decorate them. Look at that. I would live in a $2 shop if I was allowed to. If that was legally allowed, that's where I would live.
What have you decorated that with? What's in there?
I've decorated it with, I got from the $2 shop, little things, you get all sorts of exciting little things, like little packets of angels and stuff, and little erasers, and I've just got my glue gun. I didn't want the glue gun to get any publicity, so I've covered it up with jewels where its name is. It's one of my...
Not sponsored.
One of my 4 glue guns. It's one of my 4 glue guns. So I just got little packets of like roses and plastic jewels and stuff and star stickers and just stuck them all together. And so I will wrap the money around the Christmas tree, and then they are excited because they get money, and then I'm excited because I got to glue something ridiculous.
Oh, and do you make something individual for everybody that you've got to buy for, as in something quite unique that you know has got meaning to them, or are you just more about what I want to make, you're going to get?
Good question.
I will always have something for somebody. So I've been making these wreaths. I found these wreaths. So again, nice but quite boring. Yeah. But everyone is selling Christmas decorations at the moment, and so now look at that.
That looks fabulous.
A little head kind of. It's just like.
But you could wear that as a hat.
Totally could. I look Adorable.
Spring racing, caters for everything.
Yeah. As a frisbee, if there's nothing to do on Christmas Day. So I make things really shiny, but I always put one little thing that's about that person, and whether it's like their name on a Christmas bauble or something that they like. I like to hide little clues in it. And I don't do that for everybody, but I do it for the people that I'm excited about.
Well, there's something to look out for when Kel gives you a gift. You're looking through going,
Yes.
there's nothing here for me.
Where's the hidden meaning in this?
This is a nice piece of soap and a candle. Like, I feel like scented candles have replaced soap sets in what you give someone that you just don't know properly that you have to give a gift to.
Yeah, it does feel like a cheat's gift a little bit. Although some of them my sister is very into scented candles. So for her birthday this year, I thought I'm going to go all out and get her a super beautiful one, right? They're like $100-something.
Oh, yeah, they are so expensive. But you could make them.
I could make them. And, there's lots of things you can do. As well as giving someone something you've made, you can also give them the craft for them to make. So for my birthday this year, my husband and son just gave me loads of tiny packets of shiny things, and I was really happy. I mean, I could make it right. So, like, you can do that for kids and stuff, but the other thing you can do, this is one of my favourite things, is that I put hooks in little creatures. So you can just get them from Bunnings, the little hooks, and then you can make yourselves necklaces. You can do little, beautifully sophisticated, elegant necklaces. You can stick a hook in anything. You could, tiny shampoo bottles, anything you like. Bits of soap, probably do that. The thing for me is always, there's just got to be evidence of effort.
Yes.
That, there's just, I've got to know that you cared enough to put some effort in. But it only needs to be tiny if it's like that, or, if you want to give them money. The other thing I've worked out is that you have to be pretty organised for Christmas, because really the best time to buy all the Christmas decorations and stuff to make shiny things is the day after Christmas. So you've got to have enough space to keep the box all year. I mean, maybe I'm just too frugal.
But this is one of my favourite quotes then from the year is you can stick a hook in anything. But you've got to make effort. So what I garner from that is I'm not allowed to be leaving the house and just grabbing like the cat and just putting a hook in her and just, here, have this,
Yeah, like, it'll be appropriate and something that's not going to go off while you're wearing it, I think. Or that's
handy.
Going to attract the attention of dogs or something. Maybe don't do that. But
what I'd like to see is the two of you at Bunnings.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
imagine that. Do you know, Kel actually did a podcast during the block, and so we would tune in sometimes to hear what Kel would be saying about us as contestants, and listening in, and you're always very kind to us. But imagine us going to Bunnings. You would go to all the trinket little parts with all the tiny little fine things, whereas I would be going down where all the power tools are or all the big things are, the paint and everything. It would be chaos, yet I think we could come up with some really creative things.
but I reckon we would cross over. One of the best presents my husband has ever given me was a set of drill bits that can drill holes in porcelain. Like, how brilliant. So now, because I'm obsessed with the garden now, I've started doing a garden in pots, because I've worked out that plants are just really slow pets. Like, they take a lot longer to do anything, but you can invest in them quite heavily. And there's lots of pots around that look great inside, but they've got no drainage holes. And so Chris gave me a set of drill bits, and I have drilled holes in everything, and my garden looks amazing. So that's another, I feel like we'd be in that section together at Bunnings, Bianca going, oh, I didn't know you were here. Oh, look what I've got. Like, that's our
right.
That's our Venn diagram.
See, and the hot glue gun, that's your number one tool that you use. For me, it probably is the power drill or a hammer drill or something to try and add some things around the house. When you do, though, make presents, because for me, what I get really sick of at Christmas time is when people, family, everyone's like, what do you want? And you're like, well, I don't know what I want. Like, I want people to think about it for me, because I am quite a thinker when it comes to presents. Like, I think, I know what you'll love. I'm going to go and just attempt to buy it. But nobody wants to take risks anymore just in case you don't like something. I find that a lot. So this is where this unique way of making things, Kel, you're doing it, you're saving money along the way as well, but also creating these, creations really, that people can just hang on to and have a laugh about too.
Well, when I got married, I made little table settings for every guest. So I made that they were only about that big. They weren't all Christmas trees, but I made table settings for every guest with their name on, and I tried to think when I was doing those of, you know, something about that person, like, you know, like, so Joe, you might have like a microphone and a cat on your little statuette, and Bianca, you have half of Bunnings, but just personalise everything, because I like to think about the person that I'm giving the present to. But at the same time, I am also not offended if you want to give a present away. Like, I'm a big fan of regifting. Like, so if I gave you a wreath and you're like, this is the most heinous thing I've ever seen, I would be quite happy for you to pass that on to someone that loved it. And yeah, like, because we don't need more stuff. And if you're not into it, just pass it on.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm really passionate about we don't need more stuff. It's actually one of the things that I'm most often, that's what I yell just randomly around my house, because my husband and my child are consumers. They just want stuff, and I hate stuff. So I'm always saying, no more stuff. Don't get any more stuff in this place. And I blame gift giving sometimes. I think people, you're right, they don't know what to give you. So the next thing, they've been in Kmart and they've, you know, God bless Kmart, I love it, but they've been in there and they've bought just, you know, another, I don't know, how many coffee cups do you need?
Yeah.
How many of those, you know, those gratey things, or like, I just, you know, that's what hard rubbish comes about because of gift giving.
Totally.
Yeah. So there's two things about that. So Joe, if there are any little shiny toys that you want to get rid of, just pass them in my direction, because I have stuff to make with those. But
Add a hook too.
yeah. But also, I think when you're our age, when you're an adult, if you want something, you probably bought it. Like, you probably have it. You don't need to give it. So, like, I'm a big fan of like doing a Kris Kringle or a Secret Santa, where you just have to buy one present for one of the adults in your family, and then that's it. So that's evidence of effort. I thought about the present I was going to give you, but I didn't have to think of presents for everybody. One year I was running low on ideas when we were still all giving each other presents as adults, and I gave every family member a hammock, and people injured themselves. By Boxing Day, everyone had put the hammocks away. It was just the worst. The worst thing I could have done.
I do feel like a hammock is a really specific gift. Like, you have to have the trees to hang it between. You have to be the kind of body shape that can actually sit in a hammock. Not all of us are natural hammock liars. Like, that takes skill.
No, and it turns out none of the Wilsons are they're not natural hammock dwellers. But I think the worst kind of gifts that you can get, this is just personally for me, is like, I'm good with outdoor pots. I'm good at the garden now, but I cannot keep a pot plant alive inside to save myself. I got given an orchid. And to me, that is an act of war, isn't it? Like, that's what you're doing. You're kind of handing this plant over and going, let's see how much of a capable adult you are. And so my mother-in-law gave me an orchid, killed it within 2 weeks. And now when she comes over, I feel like I've got to tell her that it's just out visiting a friend or something. Like, I don't want her to know that it died.
Couldn't you say, like we all said to our children when we, unfortunately, a guinea pig or a rabbit didn't quite make it, it's just gone to another happier place?
It's gone to a garden centre. It's gone to a garden centre.
You know what, Kel, I'm exactly the same. I can't keep a plant alive. When people give me plants, my husband literally says, why would you do that? That's just cruelty. Which I'm like, okay, well, I hand that over to him. But I'm guilty of giving the orchid, because do you know why? You're in a rush, you're on the way somewhere, and you can pull over to any florist, anything that looks remotely like a garden centre, even servos, you can get orchids these days. So there's not much evidence of effort there, Kel, I'm afraid.
Yes. See, I take after my grandmother, and I have a present box of interesting things where if someone comes over and I've forgotten that we were going to give a present, or if we've got a last minute birthday party, I can go into the present box and just put a little package together and get out of the situation that way.
Wow, that is so organised.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've ever been that organised in my life.
It's one of my aspirations, actually, Kel, to be a person with a gift box, like the reserved gifts. Yeah, gift cupboards. Yes.
Yes. I mean, I've made myself sound great, but I have to be honest and say some of the things in the present box are presents that I bought for someone and then just never got around to giving it to them. So there's like, their baby grew out of the thing before I got around to posting it. So there's a few onesies and stuff in there for children who are 8.
Yeah.
Regifting.
Yeah. Hey, so Kel, you are going to be doing a show for the Fringe.
Yes, I can't believe it. I'm so excited to be seeing an audience and seeing all of an audience, not just from the armpits up. I mean, I will have to iron for the first time in 18 months. But I had my first feedback the other day with people in the room, and like the first 10 minutes was just me going, "Oh, look, I love your shoes. Oh, wow. Oh, you've got those here. Oh, I'm just so excited to be talking to someone I'm not married to."
I think there's an element too of like, it's like when dogs see each other. My dog, when my last dog, she had surgery, and so she was kept from the park for about 6 months, right? And the first time she was in the park, she ran up behind a dog and lifted it with the effort of sniffing that dog's ass, right? The dog actually kind of elevated, like levitated from her effort of sniffing that. So I wonder if it's a bit like that when you get into a room, Kel, where just like, I can smell people. And you're just like...
Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm not lifting audience members off their seats with my nose, but
yeah.
You never know. We do get along to see Kel, I believe it's 11 and 12 of December?
Yeah, 11th and 12th in the Parlour in Prahran. It's part of the So Soiree Festival. Loads of good comedians are doing it. Dave Thornton, Claire Hooper are 2 others that spring to mind. And it will be great. And I promise it will be more than me just going, "Oh, you just look so nice."
When I'm out, I'm like, why am I wearing pants with a waistband? That's weird.
Yeah, it's a bit tight.
The 2 things that I'm so grateful for over the pandemic, and they're both technology. One is the fact that we can do stuff on the internet, and the second one is elastic waistbands. That is the best piece of technology ever invented.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, why would you wear a garment with a structured fabric?
Oh,
that
absolutely.
is madness. Hey, Kel, thank you so much. We will see you in the new year, I'm hoping.
Yes, you will. When I finally give you your tiny Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And make sure you follow Kel on Instagram, because some very funny photos get put up there of some of the things she's been crafting. So get along and follow her. What's your Instagram handle, Kel? At Kel Wilson?
Kelbo Wilson on Instagram.
Kelbo
I'm just not onto TikTok. I still don't know what TikTok is, but I'm on it. But that's mainly videos of being bitten by my cats. That's the genre I've gone for on TikTok. Instagram's probably a better bet.
Thanks so much, Kel. You have an amazing Christmas, and good luck with your glue gun. I mean, I have to just say too that you're not currently at home. So your commitment to sharing with us your crafting is you've literally taken your glue gun with you to where you are today. Unless that's what you do.
Shh, Joe. No one's supposed to know.
In her lunch break, come on.
My tactics of just sneaking into an office building and setting myself up in a corner office. That's what I like to do.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Kel Wilson. It's a delight as always to have you, and we'll see you in the new year.
Hey, see ya.
Bye.
See ya. And we'll have more. Now, I was hoping that Winitha Bonney was joining us next, because she was supposed to be joining us. I tell you, I'm lucky enough, Bianca, to... Oh, there she is. She had herself on what do you call it? She had blacked out her...
Turned her camera off.
That's right. So, okay, let me introduce her properly. I'm lucky enough to meet incredible women. Over this year, I have met so many women that I just go, wow, you are so clever and so vibrant and so interesting. And this next guest I met because I really am attempting and really striving to get diversity inclusion right for Broad Radio right from the beginning. So I managed to find her online, and I was like, yes, I want to do some proper cultural training to get this right. And then in speaking with her, I was like, you're amazing. You have to come on Broad Radio. And here she is, Winitha Bonney, OAM. Hello, Winnie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited too, darling. Hey, so we did start speaking initially about diversity and inclusion, which is a little bit of a sort of it's almost a very popular term these days. And I think people talk about it without really understanding what it means. What does it mean to you?
So I actually put a post about this on LinkedIn yesterday. And, diversity inclusion can be really dry, can be really quite heavy in academic knowledge and terminology and things like that. But what I've been trying to do in my training with corporates is to really bring it back to what it's about. And so for me personally, in diversity inclusion is really about kindness. I mean, the word humankind has the word kind in it. And I just think as organizations, to put me out of business, if everyone focused on just being kind to each other and to refocus their mindsets from what is politically correct or not to what is kind, I think would really create a culture of inclusion, not just in businesses and organizations, but importantly in community as well and within families. So I think for me, inclusion really is about, what is a kind thing to say? What is a kind thing to do for another person, as opposed to, centering ourselves. And it really is all about just extending the hand of kindness from one human being to another.
I really love that because at the end of the day, inclusion, if you take that literally, it's about empathetically understanding there's another person to include, right?
Yes.
And I suppose privilege comes from being blinkered to there being another experience. Would you agree with that, Winnie?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to your passions, right? So people say, oh, I'm really super passionate about writing. Well, you haven't exactly snowboarded, you haven't climbed trees. There's a whole range of life experiences that you haven't been exposed to that if you had, your passion might not necessarily be writing and might actually be something else, such as, building furniture or something like that. So it's the same thing as humans. We're only exposed to what we're exposed to from a really young age up into adults. And so because of that social conditioning, because of that cultural conditioning, we start to form world views and beliefs about ourselves, about other individuals. And that's what we mean, as you shared before, about having you sort of, your blinkers on. So for individuals, I say the best thing that you could do is to get amongst community where others have a completely different lived experience than you, where you are the perceived minority, and experience that, feel that, and listen and observe. And that will start to widen, your blinkers as to the diverse range of human lived experiences on this planet called Earth, apparently.
And so much of it is about a feeling, isn't it? Like when we talk about a lot of things in the world, it comes down to that feeling of how it makes you feel. Putting yourself in someone else's position, how does it make them feel? And when you go into an organisation, Winnie, I would love to know, you would probably see a whole lot of fear around people. Oh, they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to say the wrong thing. But then in turn, they almost do the opposite and don't do anything and don't try and extend that hand for kindness and support and that empathy towards other people. So when you are in these organisations, what does it look like when you are trying to educate them and change a culture of a business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, organizations are very fear orientated. They might reframe that and call that risk.
Yeah.
Particularly from a governance perspective, but at a human level, which is what I really try to bring the work down to, it really is about fear. So it doesn't matter if I'm speaking to CEOs of large organizations or smaller size training companies, everyone is experiencing the same sort of emotions, which is fear of getting it wrong, fear of being shamed, fear of cancel culture, fear of being reported, in the media. And really that is all about us. It's about me and what's going to happen to me and my experiences and what's going to be the outlash that's going to happen. So it's, in racial equity terms or in diversity inclusion sort of talk, we call that centering. So we're centering ourselves and our experiences rather than the other person and other communities, and thinking, how are we going to be of service to them? So the difference, Joe, you talked about empathy, and the difference between empathy and compassion is empathy is very much focused on pain and suffering, and you can pretty much kind of almost stay there. But empathy actually has a little bit of bias in it, because if you've experienced a particular trauma in your life and you share that with me, and I've experienced something similar, I'm most likely going to feel what you're feeling and have a degree of empathy towards it. Whereas with organizations, when we're building inclusive cultures, we actually want them to take a step away from that, because what happens is you can kind of really get stuck in the emotion, and then you can kind of almost start centering yourself. I'm feeling this because Joe shared XYZ with me. And so what we need to do is actually move towards compassion, because compassion takes one step away from the emotion and asks itself, what can I do to support the individual to help alleviate their pain, their suffering? And rather than you deciding what that course of action is, it's about asking the other person, how can I best support you? What do you need from me? How can I show up for you? So with allyship, I've always talked about allyship is really about being the person that you really needed in your worst moments, in the most traumatic moments of your life. Like, what was the person that you needed to really show up in that moment? And that's really what allyship is all about, is being that person for other individuals. And so we can absolutely get really roped into the emotion, but we actually need to take a step away to not stay stuck in the pain and suffering, but to ask the individual, what can I do to help and how can I serve? Because it's not about saving, it's about serving, individuals and communities. So as you can tell, I can rant about this. I can talk about this.
I just thank you for sharing just even that small part, because already it's made me realize how sometimes I will put my empathy hat on and feel what the other person's feeling and think that I understand what they need from me, rather than actually show up with a complete fresh take and go, what do you actually need from me? And asking that question, that is so powerful.
It is so powerful. And I have to say too, Winnie, like I'm sitting here as a startup founder wanting to get diversity and inclusion right from the beginning, like from the ground up, right? This is a part of our value system. This is how we're creating our business. But we're two white women hearing you and understanding that we don't have the lived experience. So what do we need to know? How can we be good allies, and how can we create the right culture within Broad Radio from the beginning?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to acknowledge that just because someone has lived experience doesn't necessarily mean that they have diversity and inclusion expertise. And so that's where we tend to see a lot of the burden being thrown upon people with lived experience, because there's this expectation or this assumption that just because they've experienced XYZ in their life, that they somehow have all the answers to how you can be more inclusive or diverse in your content, your messaging, your platforms, and things like that. So it's absolutely important that we get people with lived experience, but we also need to make sure that they have the diversity and inclusion expertise as well. So definitely training is really important, but as we know from the research, one-off training is not effective. How are you implementing that work? So with a lot of organizations, what I've now started doing is bringing myself in as what I have now called a diversity and expert in residence. Diversity and inclusion expert in residence. And I kind of took that term from the startups ecosystem, where we'd have an entrepreneur in residence. So I basically say to them that I'm going to make your home my home for the next 12 months. We're going to do some training, but just know that I'm over here. I'm over here in the background. If you have questions, if you fall, I'll catch you. You won't be doing this work alone. I'll be standing alongside you, walking with you, hand in hand as we do this work together, because it is scary. There's a lot of fear and a whole lot of emotions that come up. And if we make mistakes together, we're going to share that responsibility, but importantly, we're going to move forward and we're going to take that action. So training is really important, but we've absolutely got to integrate that training into our systems, our processes, and how we show up as entities.
I'd love to know from your point of view, Winnie, who is doing it well, or who is well on their way to doing a great job in being inclusive and being diverse, in whether it be an organisation or, my background being, sporting teams. Is there people that you can kind of put up there and say, no, they're really doing everything they possibly can and continuing to learn to create the best environment they can?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, everyone is trying the best that I can. I mean, for me to say that one is doing better than the other would be, casting judgment. Because the thing that I've learned with organizations is that everyone has a different bucket of financial and non-financial resources in terms of what they can or can't do. But what I'm seeing as a bit of a trend is the smaller size businesses that are having more traction when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So when I look at my client pool, and I work with really large holding companies that have multiple brands, are really large, thousands of staff. And then I have other clients that have maybe 5-20 people. Those organizations are actually creating more traction, but I think that's because they don't have those layers of corporate policies and processes and governance in place in order to even get sign off. To even get sign off from me to come in and say, hey, I want to be part of your family.
We want you to be a part of our family, Winnie. Yay! It was interesting, though, that we were talking before we started the show around the industries we've come from. And so, I'm in the media industry, which is pretty far behind when it comes to diversity. And Bianca's come from sport, where we were talking about the different structures that have been very like barriers all around for lots of different people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially in sport, for athletes, it's been a huge topical thing in netball because, we've out of all the 80 elite players that play in the Suncorp Super Netball, there is one Indigenous athlete, and everything comes on her when it's, Indigenous round, and it's all, she has to be out there on court. Everyone expects so much from her, and it's so much pressure on her shoulders. Yet what we're realizing, and all of us are to blame, is that there's only one way to make it to the elite level, and it's so structured in for white girls to play the game. And I look over the ditch at what New Zealand do in terms of their netball and how they develop and they embrace so many different cultures and so many different, even just as small a thing as so many different body shapes that can still play the game. And I just look at them in awe, and I shouldn't because they're our main rivals, but I look at them in awe because every time, even just the national anthem, the way they sing it in the Maori first and then they sing it in English the second, and I don't know, I get goosebumps when I listen to the national anthem because of just how much respect they pay to those that have come before them.
I guess we're saying there's so many of us are so far behind.
Yes.
I feel like there's so much work to be done.
Yeah. So ironically, it was media that got me plugged into doing this work, and it just so happens that the majority of my clients are in media, creative, advertising sort of industries and sectors. But I think for me personally, doing this work, lack of representation, particularly for me in the media industry, was what propelled me to start doing this work. But it's also the thing that keeps me really engaged. It gets me up every morning. And with all my clients, I can genuinely see them trying really hard, to the best of their ability, trying to do this work. And, I keep reframing it as an opportunity, because if we keep seeing it as a problem, again, that empathy, we're going to stay in that pain. It's not going to help us move us forward, because that's when fear rises up. That's when shame rises up. And really, it's to just reframe this simply as an opportunity. Yes, absolutely. These problems exist and they are problematic. But let's start to think outside the box. We're in the media industry, for example, we're storytellers. Get to utilize the skills that we are exceptionally good at to look at these set of challenges and create opportunities for more equity and equality. And let's stay really, really action focused and moving forward, because it's not about getting it right. It's just about just taking incremental steps forward, because they all compound over time. Because what the hell, we're all imperfect people living in an imperfect world on this rather weird planet called Earth. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get it right. So why are we focusing on that? Why are we getting so hyped up about it? Let's focus on incremental changes and moves forward, and leave a legacy for the next generation to pick up and to continue that work.
See the opportunities. I love it.
It is so great. And I know that you are running a colourful conference. It's online this year, so that's fantastic. Anyone can join from wherever they are. Tell us about your conference, Winnie.
Yeah. So I guess for me, my own career before doing this work, I was working in the corporate sector, and I went up all the way to a CEO level, and I was like, where are all the other women of color? CEOs and executive leaders and things like that. So I created Colorful Conference, which is a one-day event by and for women of color and allies. And it's an opportunity for us to come together and to do this work. Allies learning how to support women of color, learning from our stories, hearing our stories firsthand, and women of color having a safe, respectful, nurturing, but empowering place to celebrate our achievements, to highlight exceptional women of color in the community that are leading and in corporate and in business, and for us to come together, put our heads together, and to learn how to do this work, to redefine leadership, to redefine entrepreneurship for ourselves, and to really unpack how can I go on this journey in a way that's really going to be fulfilling, empowering, and joyful for me. So it's kind of like, because I have a background as a dancer as well. So for me, it's a hybrid between a Beyonce concert and a TED Talk, but also a day spa. So that's basically what the event is about.
Sounds like heaven.
I know. I mean, why don't they offer a day spa at Beyonce concerts? That is madness. What a missed opportunity there. So get along. You can register the events.humanitix.com. Colourful 2021 is the address to check out there to get tickets to that. And I love it so much. Winnie, thank you so much for joining us on Broad Radio.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, look, and darling, we will work together next year. I promise. I can't wait.
Yay. Have a beautiful and blessed rest of the day.
Yeah, you too, Winnie. You take care, and we'll have more Broad Radio after this.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Well, Bianca, I introduced you to a term at the top of the show called matrescence, which you should be all over because you're about to have your first baby. But I only learned it this year. It is the multi-layered transformation that a woman goes through when she becomes a mother. And to learn more about it, we welcome to the show women's health expert and life coach, Elise Clement. Hi, Elise.
Hello.
Well, I'm well. I have to tell you, my daughter is 12 and I'm only just learning about this notion of the transformation you go through as a woman. But I do remember the experience and how very difficult it was for me to adjust when I had my child. So can you explain matrescence, this new term?
Yes, so matrescence is, it's not a new experience. That's something that's very important to understand, obviously, because women have been going through motherhood for a very, very long time. But it's a new understanding of the transformation that women go through when they navigate motherhood. And here I also want to say that it is not something that only takes place when a woman gives birth. It's actually an experience that unfolds as she goes through motherhood. So your daughter is 12 years old, Joe. There are more layers of transformation that are, that may be coming up for you as you evolve alongside your daughter. So the study of matrescence, if you want me to give a bit of history perhaps behind the term, it was first coined in the 70s by an anthropologist called Dana Raphael. She is the lady who gave us the word doula as well. Don't know if any of you, if you are familiar with the word doula, someone who comes during the birth to provide emotional support to a woman with birthing. And she was studying how women were supported beyond birth. And it didn't really at the time, I mean, she was doing research into that area, but it didn't really take off until a little bit later on, when a clinical psychologist in the US called Dr. Aurelie Athen likened matrescence to adolescence. And this is quite, I mean, it's fabulous, I think, in order for us to understand what happens, because we know that when a child transitions into adulthood, they will go through a period of time that is a bit rocky, let's say, roller coaster emotion, a new identity forms, there may be some questioning about who they are, etc. And matrescence, in a way, is the same for a woman who transitions through motherhood. So that really has helped put this experience into perspective. And yes, a very, very important concept for women to understand. So they know what they're going through is normal and they're not going crazy.
And I imagine, because when I saw the word actually written down, I was like, I don't even know how to pronounce it, let alone what it actually is. But you've given me a good background. And, when I first found out I was pregnant, I went through this range of emotions of being excited, but also being feeling like I love my life. Like, what have I done? I love the independent life that I lead. I love the work that I do. And now I'm going to have to stop everything and my world is going to completely change. And I know now that I've had a bit of a chance to get used to the hormones, I understand that sometimes that plays a role. But is that the kind of thing that you are like relating to, in that this is kind of just a normal process that you go through, where you do have all of these phases of transition, and this is just probably the very first one that I'm going through compared to what happens for the rest of the child's life and my life?
Yes, exactly. It's an understanding that it's normal to have this period of grieving as well, the person that we used to be, before we get to know the new person that we're becoming as a mother. And there is a term that is used in the study of matrescence called the inner split. So this sense of like not really being who we used to be, but not yet knowing who we are. That happens in that period of becoming a mother. And this is, you said something earlier in the show, I think at the very beginning, you were talking together and saying, how women don't often share what they go through to someone who's pregnant.
Yeah,
they don't really share about what's beyond, what's awaiting them beyond this experience. And I think this is where we need to start changing that. We need to start changing things. So more women are actually opening up about their experience, not in a way to make anyone scared or to, put pressure on other women, but more in terms of like allowing us to not get into motherhood with false expectations of what this experience may be, to understand that it's fine to have, there is a whole spectrum of experience that's possible to have, and that, validating the feeling and normalizing the feelings of ambivalence that may be present sometimes as we go through this journey.
And so what support mechanisms or coping mechanisms do you recommend that when you're going through these different things, the harder times, what can we do? I know you've studied positive psychology and wellbeing, and I just love being able to invest some time in that. But, what can we actually tangibly do to try and support ourselves through these times?
Great question. The first thing, something that Winnie mentioned just before actually, is kindness, but kindness to self. So cultivating kindness towards ourselves and trying to understand that motherhood is a process, it's not an event. And giving birth, you're not going to naturally transition into motherhood just because you gave birth to a baby. It's a process that requires time, it requires patience, it requires support as well. And unfortunately, these are things that are sometimes hard to come across in our culture. But it's really trying to be kind to yourself, and also trying to learn right now how to ask for help and how to get the support that you need in order to feel like you can have the space and the time to grow into this new role and grow into this new, this change.
I love all that you just said.
Just
then.
taking some notes.
Oh, look, honestly, because Elise, the asking for help is hard. And I have to say, if I had known the term matrescence when I was first pregnant and then going through all the changes that you go through, it would have helped me enormously after I'd given birth not to feel so guilty about how awful I was feeling, because to know that it's normal and also that you can have that inner split, amazing. And also in our culture, I feel like we just expect women to suck it up. Just pretend like you haven't had a baby. Just pretend like you can go back to work and everything's the same. Don't show any weakness because, you know, you feel like you're going to be judged at work. And we're not giving the time for mothers to really embrace the experience in positive, gentle, loving ways to self.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's a very important thing that you just said, is that that concept of self-silencing, that because we don't know that it's normal to go through all of these feelings, we tend to self-silence and pretend that nothing has changed. So my experience of that was going back to work and feeling extremely disconnected from a work. I used to work in corporate, feeling extremely disconnected from this work that I had been so invested in, and that I had loved for so long. And all of a sudden, here I was thinking that I would just slip back into work the way I used to do. And it wasn't the case. But because no one around me, or everyone around me, I should say, was expecting me to be the same, I felt that I hadn't, I couldn't really say anything, or I felt that it wasn't probably normal what I was feeling and that no one else was going through it. So that's also the thing, when women start sharing about their experiences, when they start opening up and being real about how they feel, they enable other women the opportunity to feel validated and seen, and to normalize the experience as well.
I think it's one of these terms that we need to get out in the open. We need to talk about openly in the same way menopause is now being spoken about more, because I remember being back at work and being surrounded by people who would be coming in hungover because they'd had a big night the night before, and they were getting a whole bunch of, oh, you poor thing, maybe, take the morning off or whatever. And I'm like, my baby hasn't slept for 2 weeks and I'm still here and I'm not allowed to complain about that, because we just don't honour a woman's experience in the same way. And I'm hoping that with changes in parental leave and with changes in sort of understanding, even talking about childcare and the juggle of parenting, I'm really hoping that that's going to change in the future. And the more we talk about matrescence, the better. So thank you so much, Elise. It's been awesome to learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me. Been a pleasure to talk to you both.
Yes, and you two, I know that you do run workshops and all mother circles and stuff. Yes. So maybe you two should hook up.
Yes, absolutely. Right. We're already connected on
Bianca.
LinkedIn.
Yes, exactly, definitely. I would love to have you there.
And so thank you so much, Elise. It's been ace to have you on the show, and you have a beautiful Christmas.
Thank you so much. You too. Have a great day.
Okay. Bianca, it's been gorgeous to have you again. I think this is the last time you and I are going to be sharing the show this year, because we're wrapping up the show on the 14th of December.
Yes.
So.
Well, sorry for hijacking a lot of baby chat on the show, but I've learnt so much, and I think see the opportunities like Winnie had spoken to us about, and our, the split, like the inner split, that just resonated so much with me already. So we always take so much away and make some unique Christmas gifts, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks to Kel.
Anyway, it's just been a delight to have you on Broad Radio this year. You'll be back next year, of
Absolutely.
course. Maybe with a baby in your arms when you bring the baby in.
And then I'll be like, here, Joe.
Yes, that's right. As always, we'll be back next Tuesday at 9 a.m. for more Broad Radio, and we'll see you then.
Bye.